Sachidananda Mohanty, a member of University Grants Commission. He is a former professor and a head of the Department of English, University of Hyderabad, and a former Vice Chancellor of the Central University of Odisha. A.R. Venkatachalapati, who will moderate the conversation, a professor at the Madras Institute of Development Studies, Chennai. We welcome you all to the stage. To honor them, I would like to invite the teachers of Vidya Vanam, Mr. Aniket and Ms. Chitra, to present a memento. So now let's move on to the wonderful discussion.
We have a really high-powered panel today. So delight to be here once again. Vanakkam. So I was, please increase the volume. Okay. So when I was listening to Pankaj, very fascinating panel. So he was talking about left-handedness, and I thought, it's a very interesting way in which you could start thinking about language. All of you know the term sinister, right? Right? What does sinister mean? Grave, dangerous, mysterious. But you know what is the origin of the term sinister? Sinister means left handed. So, there was a time when left handers were considered to be dangerous. So, this is what language is. Language is, we often think of language as simply a tool, which it is not. To come to it, also I want to highlight one other, raging controversy that is now going on. A few days ago, at JNU, Jawaharlal Nehru University, Gayatri Chakrabarti Spivak, the uh, renowned and famous post-colonial scholar who is a professor at Columbia University, she was giving a talk at JNU. And during the Q&A session, one student stood up and raised a question about the great African American thinker W.E.B. Du Bois. I presume that his pronunciation must have been as bad as mine. Yeah, Gayatri interrupted him and constantly kept stopping him from speaking because his pronunciation of Du Bois was not right. So, language, we often think of it as just simply a medium of communication, but it is actually, the it's not just the avenue or the path. It can actually stop you from expressing yourself. It can stop you from gaining knowledge also. So, with that, I want to start off with one idea and one question which I want to pose to this panel. Uh, I am somebody who uses, I am a gray-haired professor, but I am not averse to using swear words. But there is one bad word which I will never use. In my vocabulary, the worst swear word is soft skill. The moment somebody says language is a soft skill, I reach for my gun. So, this is the first thing that I want to raise before this panel. Is language really a soft skill? When Pankaj was making this presentation, it didn't look like language was a soft skill. And it was not that he had some ready-made knowledge in his pocket and then he just put some words onto it and then threw it at us. Right? He was not doing that. He was thinking through language. Without language, I'm sure Ina would not have been able to talk to us. So, can we start with soft skill, because increasing in the last 20 25 years, especially after globalization, the focus is so much on language as a soft skill, and this means only English. I'm not going into the question of mother tongue at all. It is not considered as a skill at all. That is something else. So can we have start with Apurvanand? So what, I know you are a teacher of Hindi literature. You write both in Hindi and English extensively. You are a teacher, you are a writer. So what is your view on this idea that language is just a skill?
Thank you, Venkat Chilapati, and thank you, Premaji and Vidya Vanam, for creating this wonderful opportunity for all of us to come together and interact with each other. This soft skill business, I think we need to look for the origin of terms like this, and you will find that it was the entry of World Bank and interest of World Bank in the affairs of our public life, which gave rise to terms like this. So when you say soft skill, what is this softness? Softness is you can change or you can adapt to new situations, and this is what we keep doing. So uh, this is very natural to whatever we do, or the way we look at the world or describe the world. So nothing very unique, but it sounded very unique to us when World Bank gave this term to us. And it was used in DPEP and other documents. Those who work in the field of education know it when it entered. Like the word narrative, which we have adopted and we keep using without looking for the politics behind the word narrative. But when I look at language, language is what constitutes us. Language constitutes our reality. Uh, Language is the way we access this world and this reality. So language is not merely the medium or tool, the way it is described, or the way World Bank and other agencies want us to treat us as. Language is something which we live in and we constitute our world with. And it's a very serious business. And when we treat language as merely a skill, it affects the way, it affects our pedagogy in the schools and other places as well. Because is language, should we look at language in a utilitarian manner? Or should language be an end in itself? How is it that we're looking at language is very crucial. And when we go to schools, it is treated merely, and especially in social sciences, because you remember our discussion 20 years back when we were working together in the group, focus group on languages. And the first principle, which one of the first principles which National Curriculum Framework 2005 adopted was that we don't teach language or we don't study language only in language classrooms or literature classrooms. It's language across curriculum. So when you are in a social science classroom, in a history classroom, or in a science classroom, what you study is not science. You are also studying language, because science is being done in language, and language even there is not merely a medium, as you very clearly shown. Language constitutes science. So it's very important uh, what are the terms that we use even in science, and they are not seen as sacrosanct, and we keep questioning them and we keep critiquing them. So social sciences are also, social science classrooms are also spaces where we study language and where we constitute our lingual world. So language is a very serious business and should not be left to language teachers only. It's for social science teachers, it's for science teachers. And I remember Terry Eggleton once wrote, when he was questioned about form and style, and he said that name me one scientist, one great scientist, who is also not a great stylist. All great scientists are great stylists when we talk about language. And let me conclude by saying that language is also our style. I keep telling my students that when you enter this classroom, you are wearing different kinds of clothes, not the same t shirt, not the same color. We are reading the same text, but here are different styles interacting with the same text. And what I am interested in at the end of the class or end of the semester is to see each one of you evolving in your own style, not merely interpreting the text or retelling the text, but evolving your own style. So language is style, and without respecting the style, we don't respect democracy. So these questions are interrelated, and we come to that when time.
So much, Apurvanand. We'll come to the question of politics and democracy.
Yeah, you would like me to respond to it?
Sure.
Venkatji, thank you so much for raising a fundamental question at the outset itself. I'm very honored to be here in the midst of a distinguished panel. And thank you, Premaji, the managers and the organizers of the Vidya Vanam School. I think it is salutary that we are returning to an important concept that was introduced yesterday. It has had resonance, namely the question of utility. I think it's very important, the question of utility. Finally, when we depart from here, the question will be, in what way was this exercise useful for us? To answer Venkatji's question, language as a soft skill. There is also another corollary to it. I'm sure this was in his mind. Language and literature as soft option. 30 years back when I began, and I think that same stereotype continues even today. Language and literature as soft disciplines. Within the body of liberal arts, because by liberal arts I define the generation of a syllabus which promotes generalized knowledge. That is how liberal arts has been defined. And the Civil Services, Union Public Service Commission, produces civil servants who have a generalized knowledge, in contrast to what has been defined as specialized or professional knowledge, to begin with this premise. If you look back at my discipline of language in Oxford University context, in the beginning, literature as a discipline had to hold on to the apron strings of comparative philology. Because the detractors and the skeptics of the discipline of literature, they said, it is just mere chatter about Shelley. That is how we began 30 years back. Literature as a soft discipline, literature as a feminine discipline. But in last decades or so, Rumila Thapar, the eminent historian, looked at the Shakuntala Kavya to talk about the underlying ideological processes which were involved in the various productions of the translations of Shakuntala. And then you can see that literature is no longer a soft discipline, and we are not talking about the soft skills. When I really did the work and I realized that literature or language study is not an autotelic or autonomous activity, it is deeply connected with social and societal issues. So I think the presence of the social scientists here and literature people is not just a coincidence. The convergence has taken place, and very significantly. My entry into the domain of language and literature study has been through what is called postcolonialism. I'll just end here, postcolonialism. And then we discover that it is something central to the affairs of the society and culture that Pankaj was talking about. So this much for the time being. I'll return.
Thank you, Professor Mohanty. To turn to Professor Swaruparani, you are teaching a multidisciplinary course. You are trained in history,
Yes, sir.
but you are teaching Buddhist studies. You are in a very complex classroom situation where your students are not from, most of your students are not from either Andhra or even from India, but they are coming from outside, not the first world, but Thailand, Burma, and other places. And the philosophy and the religion that is the subject of your study itself uses texts from languages which are not current, basically Pali and things like that. So, obviously, you are not going to say that language is a soft skill. This is really, really fundamental to what you are going to be teaching. So, can you tell us, apart from the fact that you are a writer in Telugu, you are writing poetry alone, or also criticism,
short
stories
stories.
also. So, there are so many streams that are coming together. We'll talk about your creative writing soon, but uh, what does this mean? Language itself mean to you in a context of variety of students, the complexity of the subject that you are teaching, the language which is out of date, but ideology which is so politically also charged.
Yes.
So, can you reflect on this and tell us about, reflect on language through this particular experience?
Thank you, sir, Professor Venkatachalapati ji, and all the audience. And at the outset, I am thankful to the organizers of this conference, particularly Prema ji and her colleagues from Vidya Vanam. I am happy to be here on this occasion. So, being the professor, teacher of Buddhist studies, and historian, and as a writer, there are many complexities, many issues, and many variety of issues and challenges before me. So our students in our Department of Buddhist Studies, Acharya Nagarjuna University, most of them, 90% of the students are from Southeast Asian countries. The two, they are all Buddhist monks and nun students. So we deal with Pali language, and they do not know English as much. Like they are not very much fluent in English, and they are very well versed in Pali. So that is an asset for us. But we don't know Pali like them. They are most fluent than us. So there are many issues. English, dealing in English is also, we don't find difficulty in dealing with them, though it is very important thing, but still their their levels of understanding is very, very in-depth understanding. They can understand everything very easily without knowing English properly, even though they are not so fluent in English, but still they understand and they are coping up with English and Pali together. So we are knowing Pali through them, and both it is happening from them. We are knowing something, and from the institution, from our university, they are learning something. It is happening, and as we know very well, it is not at all a tool, language. As there are politics in society, there are many politics, language politics. It is there that the politics are there in the application, in usage, and in the policies also. In our state of Andhra Pradesh, there are interesting aspects, very interesting aspects, not as this thing. Previously, everywhere it is common thing also, everywhere Dalits and all underprivileged sections are denied education. They were not given admission into those schools like matas and all those traditional institutions before colonial period. But during colonial period, all Dalits and underprivileged sections of the society got an entry. They got an entry into the field of education, and they, even though the English language they have introduced during 19th century and later also, but still that is, though it is little bit or it is too difficult for them, but they could avail that. They could avail that opportunity. They are not reluctant to enter into that field of English, and getting into educational institution is a big thing for them. So they may utilize that opportunity. That is one thing, and I'll get back. About the recent developments, I will speak again.
Okay. So, from the question of soft skill itself, brings us to the question of the hierarchy of languages. So, even though we generally say, this particular rubric for this panel has been called languages and liberal arts, but when we say languages, all languages are not the same, all languages are not equal. There is a hierarchy of languages, and especially in the Indian context, where we have such a rich multilingual diversity and heritage. It's complicated by, one is the fact of the colonial language of English, the reorganization of states on the basis of language, then the burning question of the official language, which is confused with national language, and then something that was discussed yesterday also, within the question of language within the linguistic region, where certain languages are silenced, and the further complexity of what happened in Andhra Pradesh over the last 15-20 years. A province that was created on the basis of language was divided, and at the same time we also have a very interesting situation that, can somebody tell me which was the first province in India to be created on the basis of language? You have Professor Sachidananda Mohanty sitting here. He is going to be very offended. Odisha. Way back in 1931, Odisha was created on the basis of language. It's very... Please.
Yesterday, my ignorance was also sort of removed when I talked to my colleague Apurvanand here. And I thought on the 1st April 1936, Orissa as a separate linguistic province was created. And I learned from him it was actually Bihar. So thank you, Apurvanand.
Thing about India is...
Biharis won't let anybody else have the first, please.
So the thing about India is, whenever we are in a group like this, our ignorance gets exposed. Luckily, at least for most of us, it gets exposed to ourselves. So we realize that we don't know adequately. So what does this hierarchy of languages mean for education? We always call it, first language and second language. So the very way in which we identify language is whether it is first or second. So we also indulge in sophistry. In Tamil Nadu, instead of part 1 English, they made it part 1 Tamil, and English became part 2. But still, it doesn't mean that English is behind. English is the supreme. It is the omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient Satan, not God. That is an issue. So I'm not even bringing in the question of Hindi, because we don't want to end up in fisticuffs on the podium. So what does the hierarchy of languages mean in the context of liberal arts? Okay, once again, I would like Apurvanand.
A Hindi wala sitting in
Tamil
Tamil Nadu. and
also conquered us.
and,
You also
and,
conquered us.
and close to an Oriya speaking fellow. He says that you conquered us and never apologized. And then you became the champion of peace, that is Ashoka. So because he never, I think he never apologized for what he did in Kalinga, and instead speaking the language of peace and was accepted. So that's the irony. But let me start with an anecdote. On 14th September, I don't know whether you are aware of the significance of 14th September or not. In our part of India, 14th September is celebrated as Hindi Divas. And I think in Tamil Nadu and elsewhere too, banners on Hindi Divas and Hindi Fortnight and Hindi Month and the week are put up and at government offices. So my student came to me and congratulated me on बधाई हो सर आज राष्ट्रभाषा दिवस है. I looked at her and said, आज राष्ट्रभाषा दिवस नहीं है. He said, नहीं हिंदी दिवस तो है. मैंने कहा होगा हिंदी दिवस, but this is not राष्ट्रभाषा दिवस. She was really confused. And I said, what is there to celebrate in it? I don't understand. She said, नहीं लेकिन हिंदी को राष्ट्रभाषा बनाया गया है. I told her that go and look at the Constitution. The section where Constitution discusses language is called languages. And Hindi is not there as a national language. So you must understand that. This is a very simple thing which we Hindi walas don't accept, because we treat ourselves as the carrier of nation. So Hindi carries this burden, you must understand. The trouble, yes, most welcome to do that. We will be most relieved. But Hindi textbooks, if you look at Hindi textbooks, they are burdened with this job of shaping this nation. And that has killed Hindi textbooks. That has killed the education of Hindi literature in our classrooms and in our schools. That is a great tragedy we suffer from, and we have been suffering from. So this hierarchy within India, and then the dominance of English, it was resented and it's still being resented. I think it's high time we took stock of things. It's 75 years after independence, and we should be in a more relaxed ecology of language. And English, we have domesticated. English is now an Indian language. It should not be treated, as I think now, as a colonial baggage. We have domesticated. We have produced Man Booker Prize winners. And now you have more and more and more literatures which figure in these prize lists, which come from India. And this is Indian English, and this is our English, and this is our language. So why should I say that Arundhati Roy writes in a colonial language or in a foreign language? She writes, the language she writes cannot be written by an English or American English. This is, and even Salman Rushdie, when he lives outside, it's in Indian English that he writes. So we should, I think, get rid of this mentality of treating English as a colonial burden which is oppressing us. We access English in many ways. You saw it yesterday. And that is a very pleasurable way. They're never hesitant to use English the way they use. And they never feel shy of doing it. Yes, they know that you are well conversant in English, so they feel certain hesitation, but they use it where they have to. He said that in Air Force or in areas like this, it comes very handy, the language it uses. So I think this is a question we need to think about in a more realistic and emotion-free manner. That is one. And second, this privileging of mother tongue is also something I think we need to look at critically. What is mother tongue, and why do we use this term mother tongue? Whenever we use the term mother tongue, we forget, as the left-handed question, that there are lakhs and lakhs of children who don't have mother. Yes, they were born biologically, but they don't have any mother.
Be periodical press and colonial modernity in Orissa, which has a big component of famine studies, because Orissa was very badly affected. The Oriya psyche was very badly affected by a devastating famine in 1866 called Naunkadurbika. Great literature in Orissa has been produced. It's because of the Raj. That's one. And the second is early women's writing. And I would suggest that one of the great poverty of our own syllabus and curriculum and courses of study is that we do not have an important and substantial component of the Indian languages. I cannot imagine any worthwhile study in any regional context. Can you imagine that Venkat Chalapati would have done work on V.O. Chidambaram Pillai or Subramaniam Bharati without access and dexterous knowledge of the Tamil language? Could I do any of this work on famine studies and early women's writing without Oriya? So I think this is not just only a requirement, it's an essential requirement. So I would say languages with regard to liberal arts, there is a symbiotic and necessary and indispensable relationship between the two.
Professor Apurvanand has some comment to make.
There's a minor quibble with Professor Sachidanand. This divide, I think we also need to question this divide between emotion and intellect. I remember my great poet Muktibodh, who used term Jnanatmak Samvedan and Samvedanatmak Jnan. So both go together. And so this, when we say that my mother tongue expresses my emotional world, many times I have seen the most forceful emotional expressions of local people coming out in English. For example, the question that is, the forceful question that Muktibodh asked was partly in English and partly in Hindi. Partner, tumhari politics kya hai? Partner, what is your politics? And this we keep asking. Partner, tumhari politics kya hai? So this is partner and politics is in English. So I would say that we should now start questioning these divides, emotion and intellect. This intellect is very much part of why doesn't an intellectual get agitated when he sees injustice. And this is how Terry Eagleton defined an intellectual. An intellectual is one who gets angry, who gets agitated. So intellectual has to be differentiated from an academic. Mortal academics like us, academics never get agitated. Intellectuals do get agitated, they get angry, they shout because they have intellect and is infused with emotion. They go together.
I have some interesting observation on Savitribai Phule's poetry. She wrote about Mother English, Angla Mata. Angla Mata. Those days when there was no education provided to the women and underprivileged, English or the Christian missionaries have opened schools and gave entry to these sections. So then she wrote, after the entry of English Mata or Mother English, Manu is slowly dying. That is
It's taking forever.
yeah, Manu's roots are getting shaken and he is slowly dying slowly. That is her essence of her poem on English language. So same thing, all the oppressed groups, oppressed communities are thinking about English in the place of the Sanskrit or so-called dominant languages. And also I would like to add something about liberal arts. Liberal arts, though we don't call it as liberal arts in state universities, but arts subjects people like students from BA, BCom and MBA also, and even MA and MCom also, right from undergraduation to PG level, we have an opportunity. Though we are registered in English medium, but still there is an opportunity to write examinations in Telugu. It is there, right from BA to that BA, BCom to MA and MCom. For science people, it is not there. Formal sciences, it is not there. But all these groups, we have an opportunity to write in English. And also, recently, after introduction of this NEP, they are stopping, the officials or policy makers are stopping them to write in their mother tongue, that Telugu. They are insisting at least PG students to write in English. It is happening.
It's time to open up the floor for discussion. I'm sure we can intervene at that time. So can I throw the floor open for discussion? So please be brief and to the point.
Yeah, I'll keep it short. Thanks for morning then. I'm really happy that when Morning Pankaj started, IIT is exactly opposite of liberal arts education is. So since it is language and liberal arts, I want to ask one question here. So university in Tamil, it means Pala Kalai Kalagam. Like Palkalai Kalagam is a party that has multiple arts. So since we have a member from UGC as well, I just wanted to take this as well. Like,
The university is named like that only.
yeah, so we have universities. Do we really have universities in India? That's the question. Do we really have universities? Because it says multiple arts, right? Like, what does that multiple arts really mean? So, if there is no university, how would you name universities then? Like, that's what I wanted to ask.
Okay, so if
Shall
I
I
may
respond
intervene,
now?
I'll use the privilege of the chair. I think, the situation in India is that instead of having institutions which are comprehensive in their coverage, universe, that is how they try to translate it into various Indian languages, Sarva Kalasala, Palgalai Kadagam, everything. What is happening is we are having universities for, for sports, universities for separate languages, universities for sciences, universities for technology. There is a university for police, university for sports. Then there is a university for petroleum. Next, there will be a university for Vaseline or naphtha. Where are we going? What is this? Instead of universities being a place where various disciplines, various knowledge systems, various streams of knowledge come together and have conversation, we are just breaking it up into smaller and smaller units, which is the very antithesis of the concept of universe.
It's happening, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for this wonderful question. I look at myself as a non-institutional person. I might represent different bodies, but I don't represent any institution in this gathering itself. By that I mean that I am an exponent and a votary of what I would call the liberal university, liberal education university, liberal arts university. Liberal education university has sciences, has engineering, but also gives equal space, equal importance to the liberal arts like economics, philosophy, languages, literature, and all that. I'll just offer a caveat. I was also educated in IIT Kanpur. I'm aware of the fact that IIT Kanpur was founded by Professor Kilkar from IIT Bombay. And he decided when he found it that the liberal arts, the humanities and the social sciences in IIT Kanpur must have the same status, same resources, same position as the other disciplines. So that is a kind of a beginning. I can't say that it has really effaced the differences that Pankaj was talking about. With regard to the so-called liberal arts university, which University of Hyderabad, which has now got the, institution of eminence tag, 1,000 crores, because of the work which has been contributed by outstanding faculty. We got the money. We are into the second. And Soumya is here. Soumya, my former students and a present colleague, is here. We're very happy that the University of Hyderabad, because some of the science faculty were far superior, considered superior to in the Institute of Science. And I was taught by Professor Nagarajan and Professor Kumar and others also. We've had fantastic disciplines. But you'll be surprised to know that one of the vice chancellors, when I got the Fulbright Award, I went to him, to his office, and I thought that he will pat me on the back and said, my dear son, or dear my colleague, you have brought honor to the university. You know what he said? He said, oh, what do you teach? I said, I teach literature and D.H. Lawrence. And he told me in a condescending manner, I remember, oh, you are also a literary type. I wanted to ask him, what other type am I supposed to be? I teach literature. And we were talking about the university, where all the disciplines will have the same status. And what we find is a peculiar kind of a caste order there, hierarchy in terms of the discipline. On top, computer science. In the humanities, we have economics. And among the languages, English. And down the line, we have regional languages. So there you are, the reality check itself. The ideal notion of the university, envisaged by Cardinal Newman, the idea of a university, and the reality in the Indian context. My answer to you is that we make what we try and make of an institution in our own dream and in our own image itself. There is a role of dissent, there is a role of our own position in the university itself, and we must not kowtow to regimes of power, and we must really create the university in our own image itself. We, in Hyderabad University, we have tried to create a universe of a certain kind, abolishing the hierarchies which exist in other quarters.
So we are really running out of time. So I want to, just a few minutes. We have Pankaj and we have Soumya. But if there are anybody else from outside, somebody from the colleges or schools, please, this is a forum for you to speak. We have many other forums, but please go ahead. Keep it.
I have a question of, I spoke about innovation when I was talking, and when, in the context of certain dominance of language and concepts that perhaps emerge from certain contexts and languages. So, when there are no equivalent ideas perhaps in languages, and one vision or one idea starts to take the predominance, how does one engage with that? So like a question that I always have is, what is innovation in the non-English languages? So a person who perhaps does not inhabit the universe of that language, does not have that concept or that term, and is there an equivalent in other languages? How do we deal with that, both in terms of as translation but also as articulating that world in which I don't know if I'm making sense, but
yes,
it's something I've been grappling with.
Pankaj,
But I'll leave it
I
at that.
think this would have to be the topic for the next convention. One whole thing of world views and things like that, but very important. Soumya.
Thank you, all the panelists. Two things. One, I think the manner in which we refer to Telangana dialect or Telangana slang is quite disturbing, because I think they're very proud to claim a Telangana Telugu, right? So this process of standardizing a Guntur language as a general Telugu has been under the lens a lot. How Guntur Telugu has become a generalized, standardized Telugu, and other things. Even Nellore Telugu might be a slang of Nellore and not standardized like the Guntur Telugu. So the power of standard and dialect, the process of it, I think we need to critically think about it. And about mother tongue, I'm very happy the point came up that how it is not really a native term to India. In fact, Ivan Illich, in his work, he refers to how the concept of mother tongue comes to us from 11th century France, a province called Gorz. Spivak is not there, but I'll still not try the pronunciation, right? So something called Gorz, where they were, the priests, Catholic priests, were trying to spread the word of Christ in the provincial language of Gorz. And in order to attract the masses to Christianity, they started telling that we are teaching you Christ teachings in your language, in your mother language. So come to Mother Mary's church and we'll talk to you in mother tongue. Until then, even until much later, Christianity was taught in Latin, right? So this idea of mother tongue comes from there, which was later translated into Sanskrit.
Thank you. On that note, I would just say that language is a dialect with an army and a navy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now it's tea time. So we
What is the implication of this for language? Are the registers different? What kind of textbooks are being written? Are the textbooks also now different? Do you use common books? Is there a common canon? Can you reflect on that particular aspect of language,
After bifurcation.
language icons, etc.?
After bifurcation, no? Yeah. After bifurcation of Andhra Pradesh into Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, so there is a little bit, there is change, there is significant change in Telangana, not in Andhra Pradesh. Andhra Pradesh is there as it is, but in Telangana they are using their dialect, their slang in the textbooks also. In writing also, in writing articles and poems also. Poems anyway they write. In creative writing they use, previously also they use that their slang. But after bifurcation in textbooks and writing articles, essays also, people are specifically very keen, they are very keen in writing their own slang of Telangana.
What
is
about
happening.
the classic authors? Do they
Classic
also read?
authors,
Do they read Vaimana? Do they read sing Annamacharya songs? Things like that.
No, they are not reading those. Classic means I have some objections about classic. So people who support that minority languages or languages of underprivileged, they support Telangana slang. Though they are classic or not classic, it doesn't matter. But yeah, everyone now these days, though they are not so democratic and not so progressive also, after having their own state, all Telangana people, most of them, they are speaking in Telangana slang. Even KCR, K. Chandrasekhar Rao, the first Chief Minister of Telangana, before this bifurcation, he used to speak in general Telugu, like us, like Andhra people. But after bifurcation, he is very keen in using Telangana slang in his speaking also.
Professor Mohanty, Orissa is a very kind of liminal position in the both the Indian linguistic map and the political map, apart from the fact of it being the earliest linguistic province. You have had to face, the domination of the Bengali elite, the dominance of Bengali language. You have also had a very difficult relationship with, Bihar and Hindi. So, what is the experience of Orissa and what is its implication for, the place of language in studies?
Venkatji, my answer to your question will be twofold. First, I think it has to be necessarily preceded by two statements I would like to make. U.R. Ananthamurthy's allusion was made to U.R. Ananthamurthy, the former president of the Sahitya Academy and the late author of Samskara. And he had said once, and I think that is really a very telling commentary about our understanding of national and provincial. He said before the advent of the satellite television to India, in Doordarshan at 7:45 there was to be an announcement, Jatiya Karakram, national program. And Ananthamurthy asked this question rhetorically and very pointedly, what was happening before 7:45? And he said, international programs. So the regional languages, till today, the local and the regional languages, the concept and the term itself is loaded, politically loaded, and it is valorized. In contrast to regional languages, we have national languages, national media. By national media, we mean English, for example. And it goes back to the debate between the Anglicists and the Orientalists during the time of the Raj. And it's extremely unfortunate. It's a tragic event of our own history that the Orientalists, meaning the languages like Persian, Urdu, and the Indian languages, lost out, and English under the tutelage of Macaulay won. So primacy of the English language, of course, in order to subjugate and dominate us, it is wrong. But as Apurbaji said, he said that, and K.R. Srinivasa Iyengar had memorably said, English is the gift of Goddess Saraswati to India itself. And our own forefather, the makers of the Indian Constitution and the Indian Renaissance, they had mastery over the English language, and they fought back and they subverted the system. So English, as Gandhiji said, as a passport to the world of knowledge, fine. English as a primacy of domination and subjugation as a marker of status and culture, that is wrong. To come back to your own question about the situation in Orissa, one of the lessons that we have learned from post-colonial thinking, and I don't want to say more in this audience because these are complex things, deserves actually 1 or 2 days seminar, is the value of pluralism. Diversity and pluralism, they have become important concepts today, and wholeheartedly accepted in the academia in general and liberal arts in particular. Against homogenized knowledge. What does it tell us with regard to understanding of any regional cultures, including Odisha? What you find is that the language barriers were always very porous. With Bengal, although there was a kind of a gentry, Bengal gentry, that ruled over us, with the colonial. But you will be interested to know, based on my work in the field of women's education in Odisha, women's writing, the first school for the Odia Hindu girls in Odisha was started by Avinash Chandra Chattopadhyay. What does it tell you about this, about the so-called domination of the Bengalis? Which section of the Bengalis were dominating? Which sections had collaboration with the rise of female literacy in India? So I think the answer is to be more nuanced and to complicate our own understanding. With regard to Madras, for example, because part of Orissa, Barampur and Ganjam districts were part of the Madras Principality. Was there a kind of a free flow of information and cultural interaction with Madras? Traditionally, stereotypically, we might say no if you are thinking of Oriya nationalism or chauvinism in a narrow sense. But if you are historicizing your own account, as I would do and others would do, as Venkat Chalapati would do, you will see that V.V. Gedi is also a product. R.V.R. Chandrasekhar Rao is also a product of Barampur. Does he belong to Barampur? Does he belong to Andhra Pradesh? Does he belong to Telangana? So in terms of the language barriers in general, and Orissa in particular, it's the same step, the phenomenon which operates there. What you find is constant porousness of the border, constant border crossing in terms of language and cultures. That will be my answer in short.
Would you like to add, to the issue of language in the context of what has happened to Andhra Pradesh, the bifurcation?
Yes. Yeah, after this Y.S. Jagan Mohan Reddy, this thing, during 2019, so he has introduced English medium as compulsory, and also he has introduced CBSE right from beginning to 10th standard, even plus 2 also he has included. So in that context, making English medium as compulsory this thing in government schools, there is an interesting response from the so-called protagonists or progressive circles like CPI, CPM and TDP also. TDP is okay, it is feudal caste and feudal party, but still they are rejecting, they are criticizing that decision of this chief minister, and they are demanding for Telugu. But there is no reality, there is no transparency in their standpoint. They are all from feudal communities. Most of those people who are demanding for Telugu are from feudal communities. And they used to send their children to government, this English medium schools, corporate schools, so-called elite English medium schools. And then automatically they used to send them to abroad also. So it is happening. The beneficiaries of this English medium are obviously the poor people, poor and underprivileged sections of the society. But these so-called progressive people, along with that TDP, they are rejecting that. It is happening. Very quite interesting thing. It is going on. They cry for Telugu. We don't know what is Telugu for them. But all deprived communities of Andhra Pradesh are into English. They like English. Right from the colonial periods onwards, they are into English.
There are so many other issues that we need to discuss, but in the interest of time, I want to raise one more issue of the question of language in terms of social science teaching. Okay, one can understand, modern science, we rely on English to teach modern science. Some logic, some rational, some historical requirements are there. But when we are talking about the social world, how, even though I do concede that English is becoming an Indian language, it's still somewhere to go in many instances. So when you are talking about the world around us, how do we, what language should be used to understand the social world in which we live? Just to give an example, I remember, we use the term caste. Very frequently, yes, both in popular parlance and in our social science literature. But when we use it in the context of sociology, we want to distinguish it from, in what sense we are using it. Whether we are talking about caste as jati or caste as varna. If we used our own languages to talk about the social world, we will not get caught in Eurocentric ways of describing our social reality. So, what would you think is the role of language in terms of social science education? We'll not go into social science research and other things, a very big area. Just in terms of pedagogy, classroom situation.
Venkat, I would like you to recall our discussion again.
Why don't you brief the audience about that particular NCRT National Curriculum Framework?
That was a very exciting period, 2004, 2005, when NDA one was unseated and UPA came to power. And you are aware of the debates about NCRT, about textbooks, about curriculum. The curriculum for schools was changed in the year 2000, and there were court battles and other battles, and the allegation was that the curriculum was being saffronized. After that, the government, the Congress-led government, which is UPA government, came to power, and the structure of NCRT got changed, and Krishna Kumar joined as director of, Professor Krishna Kumar, educationist, he joined as director of NCRT. But the terms of reference that the government gave to NCRT regarding curriculum and textbook was very interesting. It didn't say that desaffronize curriculum. It didn't say that desaffronize textbooks. That was the demand of many of our left friends. Detoxification of textbooks and desaffronization of curriculum. But the government said that you have to revise curriculum keeping in view the recommendations given by Professor Yashpal in his 1992-93 Learning Without Burden document. That was to change textbooks so that what becomes central is developing understanding. So textbooks have to be made less dense So everything started from there. And 21 focus groups were created. One of them was language focus group. And the principle that language focus group adopted was that without getting into what we are discussing now, what we need to emphasize is that our classrooms need to be entered by teachers with a multilingual sensibility. And we need to understand that all languages are multilingual. So if you accept this notion of multilinguality, how do you describe jati? How do you describe caste? It's not a question of Hindi, English, Tamil, or Malayalam. Even if you are teaching in Malayalam, even if you are writing a textbooks in Malayalam, it has to be infused with this multilingual sensibility. Because we were discussing it yesterday and we are discussing it today, that without having this multilingual sensibility, how do I write a textbook in Hindi in Bihar? Because Bihar is not only Hindi, Bihar is Maithili, Bihar is Bhojpuri, Bihar is Magahi, Bihar is Angika, Bihar is many languages like Bengal, like Assam. And the text case, and it's a very political question because in Assam, the agitation, the Assamia thing, the NRC, everything was premised on the fact that Assam, there is an Assamia identity and the Assamese language has to be privileged. So the Mia poetry had to be disparaged, had to be juxtaposed against Assamese. And I kept asking that what about Bara, what about other languages? There are hundreds of languages in Assam. The northeastern region is the richest in terms of languages. So why is it that Assamese is being privileged over other languages? And the whole NRC exercise was premised on that. So therefore, I would urge that we should not get into this question that if should we write our textbook or should we force our teachers. This is a different question and it relates to or it has to do with factors which we cannot control, which market controls and other things control. And for that, we need another political battle of resources, of control of resources, who controls what, and who says what. But this question needs to be resolved in this manner, that we need to make multilinguality the basis of our language teaching in all disciplines, science, social science, even literature.
Thank you, Venkat, very much for taking us back to the rubric of this session, namely language and liberal arts education. First, I'd like to precede this by invoking a statement of the novelist Raja Rao in Kantapura. In the preface to Kantapura, Raja Rao said memorably, "English is not the language of my emotional makeup. English is the language of my intellectual makeup." That is to say, when I want to write creatively, I take recourse to my own mother tongue. I think whether we agree or disagree about the acceptance of the coinage mother tongue, it has existed, and the well-known linguist Prabal Dasgupta, in contrast to mother tongue, described English as auntie's tongue, mother tongue and auntie's tongue. Now,